schedule here. We've got three more to hear before our lunch break. So we'll start with facilities, and we have, let's see, we have Mr. Jolly, and then also Rachel, I think, will assist. So you're online, Mr. Jolly, go right ahead.
All right, good morning, everybody. Kevin Jolly, Facilities Supervisor. I want to start off by saying that this year has been another very busy year for facilities. COVID-related things, projects being finished up, things popping up out of the blue. But we kept extremely busy, and busy is how we like it. Before I go any further, I just want to go over really quick a couple of projects that we completed that we're rather proud of. Just a few of them I just want to go into, but we remodeled Circuit Court's Judges Chambers, soundproofed the walls, rebuilt the walls, new paint, carpet, electrical. Turned out to be a long project, but it was completed, and we're extremely proud of how it turned out. As you may remember from last year, we budgeted some repairs on the boilers, replaced boiler sections, new cast iron sections on both boilers, replaced the seals, gaskets, etc. Things are running smoothly, operating as they should. And real quick, the final little thing I want to go over is we installed new framing and new door in the soon-to-be Circuit Court area by Conference Room A and B. That was another large project that took quite a lot of time to complete, so proud of that one. Currently, a couple projects that we are working on for this upcoming year is we're working closely with South Fork Camp to decide the new furniture for the new remodels for the BOC office area, as well as the Circuit Court area. So that's kind of an ongoing project there. And then another one that's going to be a large project that we're looking at starting here soon is we're reorganizing different areas of the courthouse. The courthouse is very cram-packed right now, but we're utilizing the space for additional storage as things get moved around. BOC moves downstairs, Circuit Court goes upstairs. We got to find new storage spaces for displaced department storage records. We're working on doing that now, so it's going to be a large upcoming project. With that being said, I'll roll right on into the budget. Pretty much, as you can see, not a lot has changed since last year. There are, however, a couple areas that we increased. The largest one that I want to go over is the heating fuel. As everybody knows, fuel prices are outrageous. We're still, just because of the weather, we're still operating the boilers. Usually this time of the year, they're shut down, just because they're not necessary. But last year we budgeted, it was for fuel oil about $15,000, and that's before anybody knew the price of fuel was going to go up. And when Isabel and I got together to go over the budget and what the forecast was for the remainder of the year, we realized that that amount was pretty inadequate. So we increased it this year to $32,000. That's an increase of $17,000. I don't see the fuel prices going down. Maybe they will, but that's the largest increase that several of my line items reflect. Another one that's relatively, large, I suppose, is line item 6007 for tools and minor equipment. In the grand scheme of things, it's not that large of an ask or an increase, but our tools need to be some upgrade, table saw, chop saws, that sort of thing, just to name a few. And, to not allow us to do our jobs better, quicker, more efficient, we want to try to start upgrading some of these key pieces of equipment. So that's another ask that we're hoping you consider. On the other hand, a couple areas of decrease is $2,000. And that's in case we have to call in, someone to fill in when someone's on vacation, janitor's on vacation, that sort of thing. It was 2,000. It's like, why is it need to be that high? So we dropped it to $1,500 decrease. And the other large decrease is in our 7450 line item, that's buildings and grounds. Last year we budgeted in 124,000, and that was to replace and get the work accomplished on the boilers. That's all finished, and so we downgraded that to 96,000, and that's a decrease of 28,000. So that's the other decrease that I'm showing, and basically everything in a nutshell. The budget asked for this year is $480,670, and it's a what's that? Oh, I thought someone was asking a question. Sorry. And this is a decrease of $6,800 for last year. So there is some decrease, but the fuel oil price kind of you almost had to double that. So we add that into the increase, but still everything's said and done. We're looking better than we did last year. So that's everything I really have in a quick nutshell. Or any questions that I can answer? Clarification.
Questions for Mr. Dolly? Yeah, Joe.
Just one question, and it's a little bit off the wall, but is it possible to convert that boiler to electrical rather than oil?
There is a possibility, but it would require quite a lot of dollars. The whole building's set up for radiant heat. And like I said, everything's a possibility, but that would be quite a large undertaking. Relocating people, removing radiant heat pipes, installing ductwork, but nothing's out of the question.
No, I'm just talking about the boiler unit itself, rather than using oil to boil the water, using electricity.
Again, that's a possibility, but the boilers are connected to the radiant heat. So you disconnect the boilers, and I see where you're saying it's an electric boiler, but these are brand new boilers, and they're diesel fired as well as the generator. So, yeah, certainly we could, that's a possibility if it's decided that's the path we need to go.
Well, I was just thinking that because of environmental damage that we're going through with global warming, should we be starting to look to the future to convert things to electrical rather than putting more pollutants in the air?
Yep, no, I agree.
Why don't you talk with a man named Dave Wimpy at PUD? I don't know if you encountered him in your travels around the county. He's an expert on conversion systems, as Bill just inquired, and he could tell you if it made sense and how much it cost, and then what kind of subsidies might be available from Bonneville Power Administration and so on. That's basically what he does, and there's been a lot of organizations have been retrofitted in recent years in Zelma County, and for that very reason. And without going into a heat pump with all the duct work, like Bill pointed out, just heat the water.
Yep, no, I know Dave Wimpy well, worked with him many times in the past. So that's certainly something I can make a phone call and follow up with him and get the information.
Yeah. Answer might be it doesn't make sense, but at least you'd have an answer from someone who's pretty current on all that stuff.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. Other questions on facilities?
Any other questions?
So I was going to add some additional budgets to the facilities conversation, if I could. We don't have any facilities projects built into the facilities budget. Some of the projects that Kevin started talking about have new budgets that I'm going to elaborate on. To start, the Board of Commissioners approved a couple of projects for facilities to come out of the ARPA funding. One of those is a countywide facilities assessment, which does include the courthouse, which will include any potential changes to a boiler. We also anticipate installing new HVAC systems throughout the courthouse, new and replacement systems, as part of our larger courthouse remodel work, which I'll talk about in a different fund. Additionally, we are going to be replacing the exterior doors because they tend to sieve water during storms, as well as upgrading all the interior lighting. So those are facilities projects, but they're built into the ARPA budget. Additionally, Fund 301, which has been the county's building improvement fund, has been sitting on a large balance, primarily because of the proceeds realized from the sale of timberland properties to support a new court facility, which has not yet happened. And so that fund used to operate around $600,000, which seemed to be sufficient in prior years, prior to 2015, 2016. And so the proposal for 301 is to transfer the 1.8, which is the timber sale proceeds, plus money we've been saving annually to deal with our circuit court spacing issues and court security. We're transferring that out of Fund 301 into a new fund, 310, which I'll talk about next. But for 301, we're proposing a 1.8 transfer to a new fund, so this big project that's going to be multiple years now is not continually buried and more difficult to track within 301. To bring an operating budget up to $600,000, there is a transfer from the general fund to 301 of, where did it go? It's like $483,000.
I don't know if Kevin froze or if we froze.
I see David moving, so I think
Okay,
Kevin's
so
froze.
Kevin must be
Okay.
froze.
Hello? Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, the picture just froze.
Okay, so that's 301. So moving to 310. So we have a three-phase project that the county has developed in working with Circuit Court and the Oregon Judicial Department. And we're in the middle of phase one right now. So phase one is switching meeting rooms A and B and courtroom 108 with Circuit Court. And so we are about a month away, I think, from moving Circuit Court into meeting room A and B. We are going out to bid as soon as next week to advertise for a construction contractor to renovate the Nestucca room, which is a meeting room in the basement, to allow for a dedicated jury deliberation space, as well as renovating courtroom 108 to be the Board of Commissioners' dedicated space. That construction is estimated to take about 4 months. In the meantime, the Board of Commissioners will operate meetings in the Nehalem room, which is also in the basement. So phase one is that meeting room swap. Concurrently, we are planning to construct an annex either on the South Courthouse lawn or on the lawn adjacent to the museum that will support BOC offices and meeting space. And we are working with the state on that. We believe we have a high likelihood of receiving $1 million in the 23-25 biennium for that annex. And so not sure when the money is coming in. The 310 budget contemplates a $4.7 million annex. That number is probably low given the change in pace of pricing, but it's a starting point. It does have a cushion in there, but at the pace of which costs are increasing, I don't know if that's going to be enough. And so we have a $4.7 million courthouse for BOC meetings and offices as our phase two, built into Fund 310, which is a new fund. The 4.7 cost will be derived from, is proposed to be derived from the $1.8 million that I said we're transferring from Building Improvement Fund 301 to the new fund, which is cash we have now. $1 million in ARPA funds, which the Board of Commissioners already approved, which will be transferred. Actually, no, it's going to live in 196, but it's part of the 4.7. $1 million we believe we're getting from the state. And then yet to be determined, which we'll talk about when we talk about the TLT budget, is $900,000 from TLT to make up the difference. And that money would only be able to be realized If the Board of Commissioners approves and county council also approves of the use of, if the building annex is constructed adjacent to the museum, the top floor would be for museum purposes. If it is on the south courthouse lawn, we would not be able to realize TLT, and then we would have to make up the difference. So I'm not sure where that scope is going to land, but ideally next year we are starting the engineering phase. We will also have the results of a seismic assessment that we are funding right now out of Fund 301 currently. I received a preliminary preview of the results of that, and I think it's going to be interesting and will certainly help drive where we want to put that annex. But we should have the results of that in a month. So, and then phase 3 is, so we're swapping meeting rooms now, and then within a couple of years, the plan is to have this county building built. Then the Board of Commissioners office and their meeting rooms vacate the courthouse. They're located in the new building. And then we have vacated spaces in the courthouse. We will then begin a remodeling effort. Again, we would go back to the state for some funds here, but remodeling would include remodeling those vacated staff spaces, potentially any other spaces that we so choose in the courthouse at that time, installation of the HVAC in areas that do not have any heating and cooling now, or cooling, improved heating, finally addressing the ADA access. The ADA access may be resolved if the building annex is constructed on the south lawn of the courthouse. But if it's in the museum lawn, we would need to resolve the ADA access through our phase 3. Also, phase 3 contemplates installation of the Sally Port, and then any of the potential seismic retrofits that we may choose to do at that time. So I know that's a mouthful. There's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of support around this. We have 3 phases. We're concluding phase 1 here in a couple of months. Phase 2 is the construction of a new building, and then phase 3 is several years away, but then we're looking at the courthouse and other retrofits and remodeling. And so in the budget this year is building in some spending authority to start with the county annex.
Thank you.
That's all I have for facilities.
So that's it then for facilities, including Dolly?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. So any questions for either of the individuals before us?
No question, but wow.
Pretty ambitious. You know,
Good job, Rachel.
one time there was a talk to put an arraignment court or something out here. Is that gone away totally?
No, that is the dream solution that when I started in 2015 was projected to cost $18 million. And so I think that option still exists, and it may include all of court, DA, juvenile, anything within our justice system facilities would all be relocated out here, which was the original idea. Or, depending on what we find through the seismic assessment, we may look at a whole new courthouse out here for all of our county facilities, which only would be really viable if we received the Lynn County lawsuit money. So we are trying to plan accordingly so we aren't wasting money on the courthouse projects, but building in projects that could be reused potentially if we relocate. So we are thinking about that. But yes is the short answer. That option for relocating out here is still certainly on the table, but it's
Where is the state on that right now?
Lynn County lawsuit?
No, not that, no, in terms of something happening out here. As I remember, they were gonna come up with half the money.
Yeah, so as part of the bonding authority for the judicial system's courthouse match projects, that is still
Possibility.
Yep.
Well, the
And
state
this-
is so flush now, it seems like there'd be some movement on that, but maybe not.
Well, yeah, I mean, we would need to apply. And so it's the same process actually that we've applied for the $1 million, but it's a separate pool of funds that we're hoping to get the $1 million from. If we went for a courthouse replacement project, that is state bonding authority, and the match in part would come from the state police being located here in the justice facility. But that process is still the same.
Would have to meet that half match.
Yeah, right.
That's where the problem is.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a bit of a problem over there.
Yeah, I couldn't talk the other two commissioners into putting out a bond levy for that back in the day.
Yeah. Well, it's a big number and a big ask, for sure. Okay, anything else from either of the folks related to facilities? Okay, pretty ambitious. All right, let's go down now to veterans. Mr. Torres is here, and I mentioned he appeared a week ago down in Pacific City at a candidates forum, talked about the veterans and what they do in the levy, and made a really good presentation. And the feedback for you was extremely positive. I think people appreciate the fact of what you're doing now and what this office does, and the fact that you put your time in for America here and across the ocean. So, welcome, and go ahead and tell us about your request, and we'll take it from there.
Alrighty, thank you, Mr. Olson. So today we'll be going over the Veteran Services budget. So our budget overview is during fiscal year 2022-2023, we budgeted for $620,000. Our projected revenues are equal to our projected expenditures. Our largest expense is personal services, payroll, and benefits at $370,000. We've allocated $490,000 for contingency funds and $106,000 for unappropriated ending funds. Our revenue sources are, if the tax levy is approved, it'll bring in approximately $350,000 annually. The proposed tax levy is 7 cents per 1,000 assessed property tax dollars, which amounts to $14 per average family home yearly. Also, Tillamook County receives approximately $80,000 annually from the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs to be used for enhancement and expansion. Services we offer. Tillamook County has a population of about 2,500 veterans according to ODVA. Our office currently has 4 full-time employees. We file claims for VA compensation, VA pension, VA burials, and VA appeals. We also assist veterans with medical transportation, VA health care signups, and advocate for veteran suicide awareness. Computer software we're looking to purchase in the upcoming fiscal year is VetraSpect. That software is used to upload claims and appeals to the VA. We're requesting $2,300 to cover 4 office computers. Our travel, training, mileage. So, Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs holds a mandatory annual fall conference. We would like to allocate $3,000 for that potential travel expense. Our non-capital equipment, we replaced all of our needed equipment in fiscal year 2021-2022, so we're not budgeting for these items for the upcoming fiscal year. Our contracted services, so we're doing yoga for veterans through the NCRD, which we've allocated about $4,000 for that, and we're hoping to start a Tai Chi for veterans program through the Tillamook YMCA, and we're going to allocate $4,000 for that as well. Significant changes from the previous fiscal year. So there is a few significant changes in our budget from the prior fiscal year. We have not lost any staff due to retirements or resignations. Indirect cost allocations have increased due to our current economy and hyperinflation. The upcoming Veteran Services tax levy has dictated the design of our budget. We only want to funds on non-negotiable expenses and allocated expenses funded by the ODVA expansion and enhancement grant. This is the first phase of a cost savings plan in case the levy does not pass in May. Any questions?
Let me ask the big question. You mentioned it. If the levy doesn't pass in May, what's the backup plan for your operation?
So we're going to file again in November for a 6 cents per 1,000 assessed property tax dollars.
Okay,
And then if it doesn't pass, then we're, our fate's in the county commissioner's hands.
so you're going for 7 in May, right?
Yes.
7
Correct.
cents. So that's a 2 cent increase over the 5-year levy from 5 years ago, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. Well, I think you do a great job. As a veteran myself, getting through my disability claims a few years ago without your help, I had no chance navigating that system. And I know that all the other veterans in the county really appreciate what you guys do. And you did a great job at that luncheon at the restaurant a week or so ago. That was great. So I'm confident you're going to do well. The levy will pass.
So you're currently, Commissioner Bell, go ahead, and I'll have a question. Go ahead.
So Nick, would you speak a little bit to, I heard you say some numbers in the meeting in Pacific City about how much you have helped veterans get in funds that were due to them that they weren't able to collect themselves, how much your office had helped veterans, local veterans get? Can you say a little bit about that? Because you did a good job explaining the expenses of your department, but I was just thinking about how the money that your office has helped bring into the county to support veterans here.
Okay. So last year we helped to bring in over $965,000 in just retroactive payments alone concerning VA comp and pen. Currently, we help steward about $12 million in VA comp and pen for the veterans that receive VA comp and pen in Tillamook County.
Thank you very much. That's what I wanted you to talk about.
Okay.
So here's a question. You said that the levy before voters now is 7 cents per thousand on assessed value, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then you said if for some reason it fails, and I don't think it will personally, but let's say it does, you drop it back to 6 cents in November. Is that what you said?
Correct. And, simultaneously, the rest of the county, they're hurting for staffing. So, I don't want to leave my staff in the lurch. So, maybe there'd be a appropriate position in the IT department, assessor's office, for some of my staff members, just whatever their strengths are, whatever they're doing now. Maybe there's a similar position elsewhere in the county.
Well, the reason I ask that is right now you've made a case for 7 cents to the voters and to this committee and everybody else. And it has some logic and reason and rationale behind it. And I've heard you say that now twice. So I once worked for an individual years ago, I think it was at a school district, and we put a bond levy out for a certain amount of money at the time. And I asked the same question that was asked today, what happens if it fails? And his answer was at the time, we'll go back out, we might even increase it, because that's the number. We're not going to cut it, because then you tell the voters we didn't really need that much. We could get by on a little less, and that's a terrible mindset, in my opinion, to put out on the voters. Tell them what you need, be honest, and back it up. And if it doesn't go, then go right back out and do the same thing again, or maybe even increase it. Now we're talking about a really minor amount of money here, but the logic seems to me to be the same, and I just offer that up as something from my being older than you are and been through this a few times. Is, people say ask for what you need, back it up, prove it, and don't give up. And I think you would send a bad message to go back and say, well, we're going to knock a whole penny off if it's unsuccessful. I can't imagine that a 1 cent would make a difference on somebody's willingness to vote. They're either gonna vote because they like veterans, which is the case, or they're gonna say, well, you guys are all crazy and stupid and dumb to begin with, and I'm gonna support you in any event. I had to say that because I appreciate what you do, and you've made a case for 7 cents. My best recommendation is ask for 7 cents again if for some reason it fails. But, not just me, you got 5 others on this committee.
Yeah, thank you for your insight, Mr. Olson.
You're welcome.
I agree with Doug. I'd stick with the 7 cents. I think if some odd chance it didn't pass in May, the outcry would push it over the top in November and you'd get your 7 cents.
Absolutely.
I do too.
Yeah. And I wouldn't mention 6 cents ever again.
No,
Keep it at 7.
I wouldn't either. Here's a question. What's the history of this levy? How many times has this levy passed? How long have we had this Veteran Services Office in the county?
So in 2012, it was put on the May ballot and it didn't pass, and it was advocated for and it passed in November 2012. And then it passed, it was a first time go in 2017. So yeah.
So this is the third time. So it sounds like the first time it was on the levy, you went through with just what we talked about. It didn't pass in May, and then it passed in November, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think that's gonna happen.
Well, I just can't imagine that people would say this is a bad thing unless they say with too much money on the ballot altogether and vote no on everything. You never know. Anything else
I
for
hadn't
our,
heard that before.
anything else for our veterans officer?
Well, Nick, I just wanted to throw you some kudos for the Pacific City Candidates Forum. I agree with Doug that you did a great job there. And my brother came to that event with me, and afterwards he said, hey, I really like your Veteran Services Officer. And I said, yeah, me too, he's great. And he said, no, he was just going around the room, introducing himself to people, and he came up to me and said, hey, I'm Nick Torres, I'm the Veteran Services Officer. Are you a veteran, or do you know any people who are veterans? And he said, well, yeah, I'm a veteran. And you told him all about the services that you offer and invited him to come in. And it was, you didn't know him from Adam, and he felt really welcomed, and that was a great thing. And I thought, that's what you're doing all over the community. And, bravo to you. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, Commissioner Bell. Yeah, I was using that venue to, look for veterans, and, I'm always on the hunt for potential claims, so.
Yeah, maybe we should put you on commission or something here. Okay, anything else for Mr. Torres? Thank you very much. All right, one more. We're going to try and get this one in all the way through here before lunch. Community development, and I believe Sarah should be online. There she is.
Good morning, everyone.
Big budget, lots of detail, so go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and pull my presentation up, and I will be very quick about this because I know that everyone is, probably you guys are about at the end of the first part of your day, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, and you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you. So, again, for the record, my name is Sarah Absher. I'm the Director of the Tillamook County Department of Community Development. Thank you for the opportunity to visit with you this morning and present the Community Development Budget. As you can see in the packet that you received, the highlights, the department is requesting some additional staffing positions to help community development, primarily with permitting and immediate customer response service needs. We currently have 11 staff members in the department to help cover the operations of 6 different divisions. One of the other significant changes is I'm pleased to share that we now have a housing special revenue fund. This is funded through the short-term rental operator license fee that supports our grants for housing and public safety initiatives. It will now support the position for the Tillamook County Housing Coordinator for their salary and benefits, as well as provide some additional funding for the Housing Commission as they continue their work to address Tillamook County's housing crisis. Overall highlights also include some salary shifting, most notably for my position as the director. As the department continues to evolve, my time and attention has also been reallocated to various departments, most notably the administrative role and duties that I've picked up for the last few years, and most notably the last year and a half for the building division, as well as additional time and attention that's needed for the transient lodging tax filing division. Overall operation costs are also largely attributed to increase in just simply the cost of doing business. Postage is going up, supplies are going up. We're also seeing an increase in publications for the Headlight Herald due to the complexity and frequency of larger land use applications that we are reviewing. They are requiring more hearings, which again increase our cost of doing business. To offset these increases, the department is currently working on a series of fee proposals and adjustments to our fee schedules. The planning and sanitation division fee schedules have been revised and are currently under review through a public hearing process with the Board of County Commissioners. The building division fees for permits and application reviews will follow. That does require coordination with the Building Codes Division of the state of Oregon. So we will be working with them, and then our hope is to also have a revised fee schedule implemented in July or August of 2022. There is also a cost for some additional computer services. We were fortunate enough to work with IS. They have some refurbished computers that are available, and this will be a cost savings mechanism for us to update some of the computers in our office without having to purchase new computers altogether at this time. So our community partners, who we serve, who we help, and who we support. So I thought this was an important list to share because I'm asking for additional staff. So just wanted to take a moment to highlight who we serve in community development. And as you can see, it is a broad range of professionals, property owners, management companies, as well as our business leaders and industries. So there's a lot can be said about revenue projections, especially in relation to a development cycle. So I'm going to make sure that I share this slide presentation with the county treasurer so that you can have copies of it, because there might be slides you want to go back and look at a later date as you're continuing to look at the community development budget. But really it starts with sanitation and planning and zoning. Those are the precursors. If we follow those trends in permitting and revenue, that tells us largely what we can expect over the next couple of years. So starting with sanitation, permit totals, you can see from 2017 to 2021, there's been a pretty significant jump. These permit totals are in calendar year because that is what we are required to report to the Oregon Department of Equality. But you can see over on the revenue trend, that largely mirrors the permit increases and what is projected. Sanitation continues to have very high revenue years and permits issued, and that's largely because we don't have a real estate market that has a lot of housing stock available. And so what we're experiencing in community development are higher permit numbers because there's nothing to buy, so people are building. And I wanted you to see these numbers with this revenue trend to support the proposed Environmental Specialist 1 that we are requesting. This is the first time in history that the on-site sanitation division is requesting additional staff. This has always been a division that has been managed primarily by the on-site sanitation division manager. And given the workload and the development activity, it is not sustainable for one person any longer. The customer base, going back to that list, the sanitarian and sanitation permits, they touch everyone. This could be for new development, it could be for remodel, it's for commercial and industrial areas, it's for short-term vacation rentals. Customer inquiries, I do have a slide later on so you can see. Again, because there isn't a lot of available housing stock and buildings, improved properties that are on the market, we're also seeing a significant uptick in our customer inquiries. And really what we need is we need that field staff that can be overseen by the division manager to help do field inspections, but then also help get the permits out of the office and help our property owners, our realtors, our appraisers, and other customers who are curious or need information about properties in relation to purchase or development. For planning and zoning, so I wanted to share a quick chart with you as well to show how the permits in this division have increased and what the trend has been over the last few years. So the numbers for 2021 to 2022, those are actuals and those are totals from the end of March. And so we are not quite finished with the end of our year, but if you look, all of the numbers for these major permits that relate to development are up. Some are up significantly. The floodplain development permits, beach and dune, geologic hazard reviews, and land divisions, again, these are all precursors for more development to come. With that, you can see a lot of long-range planning work that we have done over the past few years with significant updates, fiscal year 2018, 2019, and 21, 22. The staffing totals are at the bottom. In 2017, 2018, I did cross over from one of the planners to the director. There was some overlap in there. Historically, the director of the department has not engaged in land use review processes. For me, that has not been the case, partially because that is my background, but also because, as you can see from these numbers, we have needed help. And where we are at is one planner, one assistant planner, and myself for the past 2 years. So in the sanitation trends, what you could see was really 2017, 2018 were the high years, and then we're coming back again with 21, 22. You can see how that trends here to where 2019, after the sanitation work and the peak happened, then that peak followed into planning. And we continue to be on the uphill trend again of the same trajectory as sanitation. So they do follow each other. The other thing that's interesting is in 2019, 2020, we had a very high revenue year, but as you can see, the permit totals weren't much different. In some areas, our permits have increased. And so what that was larger scale projects that required higher permit fees for that work. In the planning division, to help offset our challenges and to help better respond to customer needs, as well as to get permits processed in a more timely fashion, we are proposing to add an additional planning position that is in addition to the vacant position that I have that I'm currently recruiting for. I did have a planner for 3 months who unfortunately moved on. He was unable to secure housing in our area. The good news is I've had an excellent application pool and turnout for that. So hiring now plus adding a planner would afford us 2 assistant planners and 2 higher level planners. With the proposal is also to promote the planner 2, who is Melissa Yank, to planner 3, so that we can actually have a fully staffed planning division with the appropriate people in the right positions to do work, oversee work, and help assist me. Other things that we're proposing is to increase the training budget. like to send more of our planning staff to a conference so that they also are able to become certified floodplain managers for Tillamook County. As you know, that's a big deal. And then again, fee increases we are working on now. One of the offsets that we have to this division is that the housing coordinator will be shifted from the planning division budget to the housing special revenue fund. And so that does help offset the proposal to add an additional planner to that division. So quickly, but as we shift into building, again, I just want to continue to highlight the relationship between the building, planning, and sanitation divisions. You can see, again, 2018 was a slower year, but we saw the development activity and the revenue from planning and sanitation start really coming in 2019, 2020. That is carried over, and again, we are on an upward trajectory that we are looking at for both the department and the building division. This, the projected 2021, 2022, there are additional commercial projects that I am aware of that are in the pipeline. We have not seen those projects. I do not know for sure when they will be submitted. So the projection for building, which is the darker blue, will most likely be more than what's projected there. So I thought this would be an interesting slide to share with relation to development and what we're looking at for residential structural projects. This includes remodels, additions to existing structures, commercial projects, and then new single-family residential structures. The commercial development activity has gone down pretty steadily. We did experience quite a few commercial projects with the schools, and we did see some uptick in development in our businesses with new structures over the last few years, but most notably we saw the highs, as you can see, in 2017, 2018. But the blue line is the one to watch. So this is our residential structures. We are adding more homes to our housing stock, which is exciting to see. So just thought I'd share that with you. Permit activity. So this is what we're seeing, again, in the trend from 2017 through what we're projecting for 2023. Again, we had a lull in 2019, but those again were larger projects, and then, or the tail end of larger projects, and now we're back up and running in 2022-23. For short-term rentals and transient lodging tax, the short-term rental division has also continued to see a steady increase in permit fees. We have reached and crossed the threshold of having over 1,000 short-term rentals in unincorporated Tillamook County. Areas like Pacific City Woods have roughly a 22% short-term rental. The number of residences that have been permitted as short-term rentals in Pacific City is roughly 22%. We are seeing an increase countywide in all of our unincorporated communities. On the right-hand side, you can see the transient lodging tax and the TLT revenue. This has also gone up exponentially, and we are attributing that to more people coming to the coast. We do have more transient lodging available, primarily by way of short-term rentals. And again, what this has required is additional management and oversight for myself and for staff. One of the things that we are working on with the TLT filing is we are currently in process of developing an online payment portal that we hope will help increase efficiencies in the office, as well as allow us to, again, continue to be more responsive to other related needs in the department. So the revenue summary, here is the summary by year overall. So again, as you can see, we had a big year in 2019-2020. That was mostly the commercial projects again for building. And then, but as you can see on the projections and the actuals for the 2021 year and then 21-22, we continue to see an increase in revenue projections, which means we are going to see an increase in work. And the revenue projections do not account for the fee increases that are currently under review or to be proposed for the building division in the future. Our struggles have been to meet public needs and customer service expectations. I want to be honest and acknowledge that in this proposal, due to the limited staffing and essentially what we've experienced with high permit volume, call volume, we've got very complex review processes, which that, in addition to our ability to be fully staffed, have resulted in some customer assistance barriers. Being approved for these additional positions and being able to hire them will resolve what you see here as our barriers and our challenges. With that, we are still unable to open the counter fully to all walk-ins because we do have limited staffing, and we are having to balance operational needs, and having additional staff in the department will help us open our counter so that we can be open for full service 5 days a week during business hours. And to support that, I wanted to show you, so in addition to the permit numbers, these are staff in the office, including myself, that have direct interface with customers. These are the numbers of phone calls, emails, counter, appointment and walk-in, and appointments. These are daily averages for a total of 6 staff. And as you can see, in addition to processing permits and reviewing permits, if you look at the number of calls and emails alone a day, it's challenging to keep up. I think at one point what we had determined is every day we walk in, we are about a day and a half behind. And to offset this, the staff that you see listed here are also coming in and working on weekends. So it is often that there is someone here 7 days a week. Our mission, quickly, we want to do a good job. We know where we are falling short. We are asking for your help to help us and support us into becoming the department with the services that we strive for the public and our customers and others that we help and that we serve. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Bill?
First question, Sarah. The reimbursement from TLT of $135,000, that seems awful slim compared to what your staff is doing in there. How much time is actually involved, and how much of your time does that all get calculated to come up with the $135,000?
I'm so sorry, Mr. Bartline. You cut out of me on the very end of that.
Okay. What is your actual staff cost to handle TLT expenditures?
My actual staff cost is just over, it's probably 1.25 FTE, where I'm coming in with the other 0.25 to assist. And that's largely because that's where I would come in anyway, Mr. Bartline, if I am working on helping to determine when we take code enforcement action, if I have to talk to county council, etc. I do feel like existing staff does an excellent job of managing and responding to that, to all of the needs of that division, but we are approaching that tipping point, and that's why we're hoping that the online payment portal is the solution. We've been talking to various vacation rental management companies and others, and they have been very responsive to that. Having that portal and having folks being able to pay online will significantly reduce the volume of work in that division. So that is our answer to respond to that. So I believe it's $10,000 a month extra for the program that we already use, Host Compliance, that helps us with enforcement and monitoring.
Okay, so I'm just curious as to whether the TLT, the $135,000, does that actually cover all of the staff costs? What you're putting into it, or should that number be higher?
Sarah, that covers the 135 covers Tommy's costs. It does not cover any of Sarah's.
So really it's 1.0.
Yes. So if she's saying 0.25 of her staff, then that needs to be taken into account, but I've always been told it was 1, so.
Because I know that this has got to take up a tremendous amount of staff time to oversee a program that raises $7 million a year. I mean, and plus you've got the computer programs, the time you spend with the short-term rental people, all of that is part of the TLT.
That is
No, so-
correct, yes. And so, and in the operational budget, the TLT program does pay for host compliance. So we do share, if you look at the budget, a lot of those shared costs are reflected because those two programs definitely are tied together. And there is a cause and effect to each one. And I appreciate your concern in recognizing that. I believe that part of that budget shift would be reallocation for part of my salary to come from TLT because of the work that I am doing in overseeing the program. As it grows, more of my time and attention is needed for that.
So I guess my question is, can we get a revised number for the May meeting to maybe increase that a little bit out of TLT?
Yes.
Good point.
Other questions for Sarah?
Sarah, I've been asking everybody about how many vacant positions. I know you said you had 1 vacant planner position. Is that current, are you down to 1? Or do you have other vacant
yes.
positions?
I have other vacant positions. I have 4 vacant positions total. The other 3 are in the building division that are inspectors and other staff. And actually, I may be hiring for a few of those positions soon as well.
Okay, thank you.
So we've been doing some pretty aggressive recruiting, and I'm hoping to have some great announcements to share here shortly. What we have been doing, as you know, Commissioner Scar, is we have been continuing to maintain our contracts with third parties, Northwest Code Professionals and Clear Company. They've both been very good at helping us get through a busy year and a half. So, and we will continue to work with them as long as we need to. And I do anticipate in the future there will always be some overlap, which is why our contract services amounts are projected on the higher side for those services, because I don't know as we transition, hopefully in the next 6 months, into new staffing for this program and some staffing shifts, that we will still have to retain her.
Final question. So the housing coordinator previously had been in your budget as a full-time person. And now he's switched over and we found a funding source outside of, it's fully funded. And so basically all you're doing is replacing him in your budget. Is that correct?
Thank you, that is correct. Yes, so the housing coordinator position is leaving and we're proposing an additional planning position.
Okay.
No. And that's largely also because as my role continues to evolve in the department and as operations expand in each division, my time to do planning permitting work is becoming less and less. And so the reality is that as we grow, I have to shift some of my attention as well.
So what are your 2 biggest problems right now, if you had to just boil it down?
Having adequate frontline customer service staff is the biggest. The second would be continuing to fund training opportunities.
That being the case, have you adequately budgeted for training opportunities?
Yes, Commissioner Bell, I have, thank you. And that has been done in coordination with the Building Codes Division for the state of Oregon, and then also anticipation of getting more staff with their floodplain certification. And that's important not only for the unincorporated areas of Tillamook County, but with all of the support that we provide to the cities, especially Rockaway, Nehalem, and Bay City, and Tillamook. Those are all also areas with vast floodplains, And so development review in those areas is a little bit more complex. And we're the last entity to issue a permit. And so I want to make sure that our staff in our office are competent and capable of making sure that those reviews are done the way that they're supposed to be. There's pretty big consequences if they're not.
Makes sense.
Another question then, as it gets more complex, how much longer does it take to do a review in a floodplain now than it did, say, 10 years ago? Just a guess.
Yeah, I would say probably another 12 to 15 hours. And that's just the planning review. It doesn't include the interface and coordination with the plans examiner, who only reviews for building code compliance. So flood construction is actually done through the planning division. And then the inspections out in the field. So it can quickly add up to multiple hours with many people.
And so you're doing more complex work with really fewer staff than you had 10 years ago, because I believe there were some cuts to your department.
Thank you. Yes, that is correct.
So will this bring you to adequate staffing at this point, or is this just kind of a Band-Aid to keep you going? Do we need to look at more people?
I appreciate that question. Thank you. I think that this will be adequate. The only thing for the planning division, it should be adequate. The office specialist 2 position is definitely needed. And then what I would look at in the future is if we were still having challenges would be another office specialist 2 or administrative support person, again, to answer the phones, to be available to help push permits out the door. We do a lot of mailings, and right now planning staff are doing those, which doesn't make sense of their time either. So we are restructuring internally. We are continuing with technological advances. So one of the things that we hope to do by the end of this coming fiscal year is to have electronic plan review processes available so that, again, there's less hands-on work where building permits can be submitted electronically. So we're increasing staff, but we're also working on technological advances to increase efficiencies. And my hope is the balance of the two will be exactly where we need to be.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may. So Sarah, I know that we've talked about your staffing levels quite a bit, and I appreciate you being very conservative in your staffing levels, but I've told you before that I'm not sure your staffing levels are adequate, especially when it comes to your time. Just in the past year, we've made a lot of progress on the biological opinion. And when I'm out there talking about these things, honestly, it's not me. I'm just the messenger. You and Molly are the ones that are putting all of these messages and programs together, and that's why we're being successful all of a sudden in moving the biological opinion forward, at least as far as it comes to Tillamook County. So, and I know Commissioner Scar keeps reminding me that we keep throwing more things at you, and you keep picking them up and running with them. There's got to come a time, Sarah, that you have to learn how to say no. Absolutely the case.
Or maybe we have to learn how to stop asking.
That's true too. I don't think you never get to stop asking. I just
We have enough staff in the department that, yes, the people don't have to work weekends. I mean, I think that is a key piece. When we have staff that are having to work weekends to keep up with our community's needs, that's an indication that we are significantly understaffed and something we need to fix. So,
For planners, will take care of the planning division. It should take care of the planning division. We haven't had 4 planners, 4 fully staffed full-time planners in that division in probably 12, 15 years. When I came in, there were 4. And we were doing some pretty significant work during that time. And the processes may not have been as complex, but there was more hands-on work because we were literally on typewriters. So you didn't have all of the, the time-saving efficiencies weren't there. And so, so I think that balance will work. where again, having that additional planner, having that additional OS2, you know, what folks really want us to be able to do is answer the phone and answer our emails. They want a response. Some of these processes just take a long time anyway. By the time you get through the review, all of the hearings, all of the public notices, etc. But if we can get that response to our customers quickly, and then have the people to do that, so planners can actually work on the work they're doing, that's going to be huge. That is where the bottleneck is.
Sarah, when did you last review your fee structure? When, maybe it's been fairly recent, or I guess I don't know.
So the fee, so for sanitation, we amended the fees last in 2018. Planning was done in 2013 and 2015, and building had to have been sometime around 2013, 2015 as well.
So
Short-term rental.
are you out of date then? Should it be on a shorter cycle of review?
Yes, thank you. That's a great comment. So what I've actually proposed to the commissioners is that they go through a very slight increase on an annual basis with an annual review moving forward. So I'm not sure if it needs to be something like 3%, it could be 2%, but just something to continue so that as our costs increase, especially for salary and benefits, we're covering that.
How does Tillamook County compare with others like Polk County, Lincoln, Clatsop, and Northwest Oregon?
For planning or for application review fees?
Yes, if you want to build a single family home on a lot somewhere, and you have a choice, or well, maybe you don't have a choice, but how do our fees stack up against others in the region?
We're middle range. Some of ours nudge on the higher range. We're certainly not the highest, but because of the time it takes, our review processes are also more complex. They take more time. So we literally did an hourly cost ratio analysis of what does it actually cost us to review various types of permits. And so we're in the middle, maybe nudging the upper end, but for the most part, middle of the road. Sanitation and building fees are also established and have to be reviewed and approved through the Building Codes Division and the Department of Environmental Quality, because we are agents of the state for those two programs. So they tell us where that line is. We have a threshold and a margin of where we can be for those, and we typically are middle of the road as well. Try to be very conscientious. One of the other factors that we have that other areas don't, we work with a lot of property owners hands-on. They're not developers, they're not consultants. They can't afford to or don't pay for those services and engage in those services, so we end up helping them quite extensively as well. So we try to set reasonable fees that remain attainable, especially for those permit applications that we're working on for people in our communities. And then we do have pre-application fees and other fees that are set in there as well.
Thank you. Other questions for Sarah?
Sarah, in the building department, are we doing these kind of all in one fell swoop here?
That's typically Commissioner Scar, how it's been done, but I am happy to jump anywhere you would like.
I was just looking in the building department at the unappropriated ending fund balance, and just noticing that in the last year that we had an actual, back in whatever years it was, our 1920 and 2021, there was a pretty big unappropriated ending fund balance, and then last year it went down quite a bit, and it's gone down a little bit this year as well. So clearly we are not quite covering what we need to do, and we took a very big bite. Is there something I'm missing? Sean's looking at me like you should. She hasn't answered.
Yeah,
I think it's because we're contracting out the building official piece,
Yeah,
which is more expensive than what was budgeted for a building official,
okay.
and also with the assistant building official. And so that is eating away. I know Sarah's working feverishly to find an assistant or a building
Right.
official so that we don't have those contracted services. It's employee costs, which will be less than the contracted. So that's the big chunk.
Okay, and so we just need to have our eye on that in the coming year because we are looking at, we don't really have an option.
Right.
Which we've established through doing everything we can, but just the awareness that,
Yeah.
there is an end to this pot of money and then, we have to start to look at general fund.
Right.
yes.
Thank you. It's just like, that's a huge jump. That's a huge, like, slice out of that.
They've been busy.
Yes, they have. I don't question that, but it just seemed like a flag that we needed to have on our radar.
That's one of my biggest concerns, Commissioner Scar. You're right, that is not an infinitely deep pot of money. And these contracting costs are very, very expensive. And so, we are working to minimize that or negate that any way that we can.
Thank you.
Anything else for Sarah? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a
All
great
right.
day.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Sarah.
Sarah.
Okay, we're going to take a lunch break and we're a little behind here, maybe 15, 20 minutes, so let's try and reconvene at 1. If it turns out to be 1:10 or 1:15, we'll make it work. So we will recess now for lunch.